Coming up on this issue of Chapter 2815, I'll have all the DC news from this weekend's Fandome and their January solicitations, and then I'll have the story of perhaps the greatest comic artist jam session ever put to paper, right after this. Thanks for coming back to this issue of Chapter 2815. As always, I'm Paul Cook. If you wouldn't mind doing me a favor before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're so inclined, and don't forget to hit the notification button so that you're notified whenever I upload new content. We'll get to the story about that artistic jam session right after a quick look at the news. It was a big weekend for DC news, a lot of it coming out of DC Fandome. Besides incredible first teases of the Black Adam, Aquaman, Shazam, and Flash movies, including a shot of both Flash's new costume and Michael Keaton's Batman from behind, we got a full trailer for the Batman movie, and boy, did it deliver. Expect to be amazed when Matt Reeves' film explodes on the big screen. And also, we got an announcement of sorts of Wonder Woman 3. We also got a chance to see a quick scene from the League of Super Pets animated feature, and had some info on the Blue Beetle and Batgirl movies coming exclusively to HBO Max. On the TV side, it was announced that both Titans and Doom Patrol are coming back for fourth seasons. Pennyworth is coming back for a season 3 and will move from Epix to HBO Max exclusively. A live-action adaptation of the Vertigo series DMZ will also be coming to HBO Max. And just about all of the CW series were represented as well, with a look at the Flash's new Yellow Boots. And Legends of Tomorrow made some news just prior to Fandome, with an announcement that many characters are returning for the series' 100th episode. Expect to see Captain Cold, Rip Hunter, Dr. Stein, and Firestorm, among others, in this special anniversary episode. Surprisingly absent from any news was the current filming HBO Max series Green Lantern Corps and any mention of Y the Last Man. Although for Y, it was announced the day after Fandome that it had been canceled by FX on Hulu. On the comic side, Fandome did have some announcements, not the least of which was Superman's new motto being truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. More was discussed about John Kent coming out as bisexual, which had been revealed earlier in the week. And Milestone had a strong presence to reveal that a Season 2 of its initial publishing offerings was coming, along with the long-awaited Blood Syndicate. A live-action Static was also announced as being in the works. Other comics news was the publication of a Monkey King series coming in 2022. The January DC solicitations hit the day before Fandome, and there were some announcements made just prior to and within the solicits themselves, including Chip Zdarsky continuing his DC work with a new 10-issue miniseries, Batman the Knight, with art by Carmine Giodomenico. The book promises to tell the story of how an angry, damaged young man grew into becoming the most accomplished detective and crime fighter the world has ever known. Detective Comics goes monthly for January in issue number 1050, continues the Shadows of the Bat storyline, but also brings Mark Waid full-time back to the DC Universe as he pens a tale drawn by Dan Mora featuring Batman and Superman, a primer for the duo's upcoming DCU series. Brian Michael Bendis brings his last two teams that he's written together in the 6-issue miniseries Justice League vs. the Legion of Superheroes. And acclaimed writer Garth Ennis returns to write a new one-shot Peacemaker issue entitled Peacemaker Disturbing the Peace. And that's all the latest DC news. In 1985 and 1986, DC published the groundbreaking and historic maxi series Crisis on Infinite Earths. The story attempted to clean up, for lack of a better word, what had become a somewhat confusing and oftentimes contradictory DC continuity. Gone were the multiple Earths with their various heroes. What readers were left with was one lone Earth that all of its previous heroes had been a part of. As a follow-up to that series, Marv Wolfman and George Perez next turned their sights to a 2-issue prestige format miniseries called The History of the DC Universe, which sought to tell the entire history of this new Earth from its very beginnings and first characters all the way to the far-flung future and its many heroes that still populated the galaxy. Once that completed, Graffiti Designs partnered with DC to bring the 2 issues together into a single hardcover. And as part of that hardcover, they commissioned what would become possibly the greatest comic book artist jam piece ever put to paper. It was included as a gatefold piece within the book, but DC and Graffiti also offered those who bought the hardcover an option to purchase the piece separately. Printed on thick poster board, only 10,000 copies of the print were made. I'm happy to have been one of the lucky who have an original, not a copy, in my possession, and it's one of my most treasured items I own. Let's take a look at it. So as you can tell from this piece, this has just about every major DC hero represented here, many of them drawn by their original creators very late in their lives. If we start in the top left-hand corner, you'll see the Phantom Stranger as drawn by Jim Aparo, Swamp Thing drawn by Stephen Bissett and John Totleben. Next to Swamp Thing, you'll see The Question from the famous Denny O'Neil and Dennis Cohen run. This is drawn by Dennis Cohen. 2 people over from The Question, you'll see the Golden Age Green Lantern, drawn by Martin Nodell, who was one of the original people who created the Golden Age Green Lantern. He drew him in the Golden Age. In the center, at the very top, you'll see watching over everyone is Plastic Man. He's drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz. And next to Plastic Man, you'll see Darkseid, drawn by the King himself, Jack Kirby. A little bit off to the right from there, you'll see the Spectre as drawn by Michael Kaluta. And then you'll see Lady Blackhawk as drawn by Brian Boland. In the center row, you will see Hawkman as drawn by Joe Kubert. Just to the right of him, you will see the famous Manhunter run drawn by Walt Simonson. And next to Manhunter, you'll see Aquaman. There he's drawn by Paul Norris, who created Aquaman. A little bit again to the right of that, you'll see the Silver Age Green Lantern as drawn by Gil Kane, who was the original drawer of Hal Jordan's adventures. Next to Hal Jordan, you'll see Shazam as drawn by Kurt Schaffenberger, who drew him famously for a few years. And then in the very center, in the second row, you'll have the big trinity of the DC heroes. In the very center, you'll have Superman, as drawn by Kurt Swan, who drew him for decades and is probably the image that most people think of when you think of Superman. Just to the left of Superman, you'll see Batman, and just below Batman, you'll see Robin, both of them drawn by the great Bob Kane. To the right of Superman, you'll see Wonder Woman, as drawn by George Perez. This was, again, immediately after Crisis on Infinite Earths, when George Perez was reimagining the Wonder Woman legend for a whole new generation. You'll see The Flash, Barry Allen, to the right of Wonder Woman, drawn by the great Carmine Infantino, who drew him when he was reimagined in the late 50s and really started off the Silver Age. To the right of The Flash, you'll see Deadman a few people down. He was drawn by Neil Adams. And then right next to Deadman, you'll see Adam Strange, as drawn by Murphy Anderson. Next to Adam Strange, you'll see Rorschach from The Watchmen. When they were doing this particular piece, Dave Gibbons, who drew The Watchmen, was actually very interested in getting in on the piece, and so he was added later, which is kind of why he's kind of off separate from everyone else. In the bottom row, you'll see Our Man by Gilbert Hernandez. You'll see The Demon by Matt Wagner. You'll have Amethyst by Ernie Colin. You'll have Wildcat from Irwin Housen, who was a mainstay of the Golden Age through DC. You'll have Captain Atom by Pat Broderick. Next to him, you'll have Mr. Miracle by Steve Rude. And then finally, you'll have Sarge Steel by the great Dick Giordano. This piece was put together by Bob Chapman. It was his responsibility to get it all together for the DC Jam. Again, this is one of my most prized pieces of anything that I own in my collection, whether it be a comic book or a print. I have several Alex Ross prints signed and numbered as well. But this is by far my favorite, just because, not because of all the heroes being together as one, but also because of just the overall history of all of the artists that are represented here and all the heroes. And so that's my look at the DC Artist Jam. And that's going to do it for this issue of Sector 2815. As always, I'm Paul Cook. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're so inclined, and don't forget to hit the notification button so that you're alerted whenever I upload new content. Thank you very much for joining me, and as of right now, you are leaving Sector 2815.